This is the Female Flex, brought to you by SpiritualVirago.com. Welcome to the Female Flex. I'm your host, Stacey Nichols, founder of SpiritualVirago.com. And today we're going to be talking about what the heck is SpiritualVirago.com? What is a Spiritual Virago? So before I get into everything, just, to quickly give you a little background, I was inspired to create this website and kind of the whole Spiritual Virago philosophy when I did an ayahuasca ceremony in August of 2021. And if you want to read more about what happened during that experience that led to all of this, I do have a whole blog post about that, or an episode of the podcast or the YouTube show Female Flex. So, and the link is below in the description. So I wanted to start out with reading the kind of motto for the site for SpiritualVirago.com. It says, SpiritualVirago.com is a hub for female identified spiritual warriors. The only recipes you'll find here are the ones for success. Makeovers? Nope, takeovers. We walk, let's be serious, we run on a distinct path of outside-the-box choices and crushing that terrifies other people, living impeccable, masterful lives and saying things like, when I meet Oprah, is all in a day for us. What are we wearing this season? Confidence. Our collective female energy is bouncing our traumas and setbacks around like a basketball. That's how hard we own that. We manifest, we meditate, we green juice, we goddess pose. If you find clipping coupons to be an undesirable investment strategy, then welcome home. Our purpose is to share the freedom and power we have come to know with the world. Spiritual Viragos, i.e. female warriors, are next level women with an X, hair toss. And yes, that is the only beauty advice that you'll be finding here. So that's kind of a condensed version of the motto, but I'm going to get really into depth with all the entire spiritual warrior and spiritual Virago concept in this particular show today. If you didn't pick up on it from the motto that I just read from the site motto, Virago means a female warrior. And one of the reasons why I particularly liked adopting this kind of unknown word when I was putting the website together and everything is that the context or the concept of this word Virago was actually seen as derogatory to women who were demanding. And so I thought, you know what? That's the word. I could have gone with spiritual shield maiden or whatever, or, women warriors and, goddess warriors. And I thought, no, it's Virago. That's the word, because we're going to take that word back. We're going to reclaim that one. Virago. Okay, so first I'm going to start with what is a spiritual warrior in general, and then I'll talk about specifically how the spiritual Virago concept is a little bit different from the original spiritual warrior concept, but they're very closely related and there's a lot of overlap. So the spiritual warrior concept is laid out in this book called Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. And it's an ancient tradition from Tibetan Buddhism, kind of this utopian society. Some people believe that Shambhala may have actually been a real place, but I think the majority of people accept that this is kind of a myth. And it's just this utopian society where the philosophy of the culture was Shambhala. And that's what I'm going to explain to you in a minute what this is. But that's where it comes from, is this ancient Tibetan Buddhism tradition. And it really became westernized and secularized and delivered to kind of the general public when this book was written. And what happened is that Chogyam Trungpa left Tibet, of course, when the Chinese took over after World War II, and he fled to the United States. And there in the United States, he opened a whole bunch of these Shambhala centers. He wrote the books, and he's written like more than a dozen books, and they're all very highly respected and just life-changing books. Another popular one of his is Spiritual Materialism. Anyway, so I want to share a few quotes from the book where he talks about, from the Shambhala tradition, what is a spiritual warrior. Okay, so page 9, he says, warrior is taken from the Tibetan word, pawo, which literally means one who is brave. I think a lot of times when we hear the word warrior, there's a testosterone association. You know, we think of blood and guts and whatever. And that's really could not be further from the actual true sense of the word. Is just a courageous person. Page 10, the key to warriorship is not being afraid of who you are. You are never off duty. You can never just relax because the whole world needs help. So the spiritual warrior tradition, it's about going inside yourself, studying yourself deeply, working through your own BS, and being able to turn around and show a face to the world that is kinder, as he likes to say, a lighter touch, because you've gotten in touch with your own dark, sticky, muddy aspects of your own spirituality, of your own self, your own identity. Okay, page 35. We got the highlighting and the stars on this one. It's a big one. If we look into our fear, if we look beneath its veneer, the first thing we find is sadness beneath the nervousness. Nervousness is cranking up, vibrating all the time. When we slow down, when we relax with our fear, we find sadness, which is calm and gentle. Sadness hits you in your heart, and your body produces a tear. Before you cry, there is a feeling in your chest, and then after that, you produce tears in your eyes. You are about to produce rain or a waterfall in your eyes, and you feel sad and lonely, and perhaps romantic at the same time. That is the first tip of fearlessness and the first sign of real warriorship. I know people say like public speaking is the number one fear or death. I don't really think that's what it is. I think it's feeling hard stuff. And that's really at the heart of what it means to be a spiritual warrior, is facing the sadness and the sorrow that you've experienced in your childhood, in your life, instead of covering it up with the things that we tend to do to cover things up with. You know, going on trips, getting drunk, buying stuff, moving on, you know, just keep putting more layers under it, hoping to bury it like that. And so really, the foundation of this concept is from being in touch with your own suffering. That's where the bravery comes from. That's where everything comes from, the tenderness, everything. Page 37, the ideal of warriorship is that the warrior should be sad and tender. And because of that, the warrior can be very brave as well. Without that heartfelt sadness, bravery is brittle, like a china cup. If you drop it, it will break or chip. But the bravery of the warrior is like a lacquer cup, which has a wood base covered with layers of lacquer. If the cup drops, it will bounce rather than break. It is soft and hard at the same time. That's mastery in a nutshell, is living in that duality with that cognitive dissonance of being hard and soft at the same time, being everything, because literally everything, you have to be firm and kind. You know, you're balancing these two opposing things at all times. That's mastery in a nutshell. And of course, that's covered as a theme in the book and the concept, the spiritual warrior concept as well. So it's really about feeling your emotions fully, being a constant student, serving others, leading others, being kind, taking the high road, doing the hard thing, doing the right thing as an example to other people. That's kind of in a nutshell, right? That's what a spiritual warrior is. So people like Joan of Arc, I mean, she's like the poster child for a spiritual warrior. Joan of Arc, Malala, Gandhi, MLK, Jesus, Buddha, even someone like AOC. You know, she espouses all of these traits that we're going to talk about. You know, she's not afraid to cry in front of people or to tell this real story about, you know, I used to be a waitress. She's transparent, she's brave, she's pioneering. So a spiritual warrior doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's religious, you know what I'm saying? But having said that, Pema Chodron, who's a super popular Buddhist author, a lot of you are probably familiar with her, she studies Shambhala. She is a student of this. This is her discipline within Buddhism. So if you've resonated with her books, that's, you know, her teachings are coming from this. This is her tradition, her practice, as they say in Buddhism. So that's spiritual warrior. Now I want to talk about spiritual virago as it differs from that, and why I made this sort of different thing. And there are two main reasons. First of all, this is a really ancient teaching, which means patriarchy, okay? Women are just, there is not a role for female energy, even though he's clearly talking about female energy, right? The tenderness and the crying and that feeling in your chest. And, you know, this is, you know, being hard and soft at the same time. Like, this is what women do, like, all day long, right? But it's really not a part of the philosophy. So that's one reason why I was motivated to kind of make this a separate thing.
Struggle to meditate? Visit spiritualvirago.com to get my free report, The Intentional Morning No Meditation Meditation, today.
The other reason is because, again, this is an ancient teaching, so it's not, there are a lot of things about it that don't really address some of the modern concerns of living in our society. For example, money. You know, during this time, there weren't these big grocery stores and fast food restaurants and, you know, the pharmaceutical industry and whatever. So health and fitness and nutrition, those things are not really as much a part of it, but a huge, huge, huge important thing for living in the world, feet on the earth today. So the spiritual virago concept or translation of this includes more attention to female energy and sort of modern living. Another thing that I've really embraced with the spiritual virago philosophy is trauma. Because facing your trauma, processing your trauma, getting through your trauma, which we all have, is so important. It's such a key element to all of the teachings, the kindness and the bravery. All these things come from that act of going through your own trauma. So that's a really heavy theme that you'll see on the show, on the site. So what I did is I came up with like a kind of general spiritual virago process, and then 12 traits that, going through the process and living, you know, with this philosophy, these are traits that you would be developing. So the way that these are meant to be useful to you as a consumer is if you are someone who resonates with being a spiritual warrior, or you see yourself on the spiritual virago path, I developed these 6 steps and 12 traits as tools So that as you're going throughout your journey, you can look at the process, you can say, oh, you know what, this is something maybe I haven't done yet. Or this is a trait that even though I'm working this, I have not given much attention to it or I need to work on. So it's merely provided and created as a tool, as a reference, in an attempt to help and guide other people who want to accomplish these goals, who resonate with this message. So the first step in the process is deconstructing yourself, which we already talked about a little bit. This is really understanding the ways in which you are programmed, your triggers. It's a contextual look at yourself from the point of view of history, from the point of view of sociology, of psychology. It's a lot of work, okay? But deconstructing yourself is the foundation for this whole thing. That's the first step in the process. The second step is knowledge, critical thinking, awareness. All of these things are necessary to start walking away from the beaten path, off onto the road less taken. That requires critical thinking. That requires studying and researching and asking questions. The third step in the process is cultivating spiritual fitness. So if you think about physical fitness, you know, you're walking along, you see a big hill, and you think, I could run up that. I could do this, you know. And you can, and you get it done. You attack it, right? That's physical fitness. So spiritual fitness is the same thing, except that you're walking along and a train wreck happens and you have the, you know, ability to spiritually muster that same strength and not lose yourself in the process, stay connected to humanity, not be lashing out at people, to face the tears, to feel the raw feelings. That's where your spiritual fitness comes from. Okay? Fourth step is leading by example. Now, this isn't really something like where you wake up in the morning and say, today I lead by example. It's just something that's going to start happening as you start walking along this path. Other people are going to look to you, you know, oh, she's going vegan, you know, oh, she just lost 20 pounds because she's getting out and working out every day, you know. People are going to start looking to you. And you might not realize it because people, a lot of times, they don't like to give you props, right? But people are going to start watching you because you're doing something distinct. And to be aware of that. So that's really what that is to understand once you step into this role that everything that I'm doing is being seen, like fishbowl concept. Fifth step in the process is spiritual activism. And this is something that I think a lot of people in just a general spirituality realm don't give much attention to. And this is one of the main things that sets a spiritual person apart from a warrior, okay? And that's spiritual activism. This could include coaching others, mothering, writing a book, volunteering, protesting in the streets, marching, speaking, you know, giving seminars. All those things are a way in which we give back and we push this movement, this message forward to try and, you know, get this global shift in consciousness. That's the end goal here. Finally, sixth step is true mastery. And like I touched on a little bit before, that's where you get into, you know, juggling the duality of everything and living with this sort of cognitive dissonance. But in this particular process, mastery includes, because we're doing that, mastery includes going from step 6 back to step 1 and deconstructing yourself again. And peeling, you just keep peeling back more layers and more layers and more layers. And it's just a continual cycle through these steps. That's the process. Okay, so let's get into the 12 spiritual Virago traits. The first one is courage. As you can tell from these quotes that I read from the Shambhala book, fearlessness is a huge part of being a spiritual warrior. I chose not to use the word fearless and to instead use courage, because fearlessness seems to have this attachment to it that you never get scared, which is total baloney. Fearlessness is about being scared. Fear isn't going to be removed from your existence, right? It's about seeing the fear and continuing through it. That's courage. That's what the bravery is. Second trait is discipline. And again, we've talked about this a lot already, but it's really just that ability to regulate your own self. And the bed of that is really integrity. You know, nobody's watching if you want to, eat meat. The meat police aren't going to come and grab you. But do you have that discipline to do what you feel like based on the knowledge that you have in this world to say, I don't want to eat that right now. I shouldn't be eating that right now. Just as an example, okay? Third quality is relentlessness. And kind of like with courage and fearlessness, resilience is such a huge, popular kind of psychological concept and term that's happening today, and especially when we're talking about people battling traumas, right? But I chose to use the word relentless instead of resilient because resilient can sometimes have this context to it that if you didn't bounce back after something, that you're not resilient. And that's just not what it is. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to heal from something or get through something. What matters is, did you face it? Did you keep going? You don't know when you step into that muddy pool if it's going to be 2 feet deep or 150 miles deep. You don't know. But the relentless part, the resilient part, is that you got in and you kept going. So I chose relentless over resilient as a spiritual Virago trait. Fourth trait is compassion. And I think a lot of times compassion has this connotation to it that it refers to, tapping into the suffering of others. But the joy of others is equally as important. We have to respect the happiness of other people, which means not dumping on them when they bring you the wrong order at the restaurant or whatever. But compassion, equal respect to the suffering of others and the joy and happiness of others. Fifth trait is wisdom, and this is kind of something that will just develop over time as you start working this. But 2 things. You think for yourself and you remain open-minded. And those can help cultivate wisdom. Sixth trait is embracing female energy. And like I said before, you could be a cis man. It doesn't matter whether you have certain reproductive organs or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anybody can embrace female energy. But the Virago program, that's at the heart of what we do, is taking things from a female energy point of view. And a huge part of that is intuition, women's intuition, okay? There's a book called The Female Brain by Luann Brizendine, and she talks about scientific research in which the female brain is notably better than the male brain at doing things like reading faces, interpreting a deeper meaning in language, reading body language. All of these kind of things are necessary qualities that a mother needs to have to take care of a baby who cannot speak for itself. So these are evolutionary proven things that women have. So if you have a female brain or you want to work on improving your intuition, that's a huge part of the embraced female energy trait. 7th trait is oneness, and this is just the idea that there is no us and them. There is a level of awareness that needs to come with buying a leather product that came from an animal, because when you live in a world of oneness, you think about things on a deeper level about how everything is interconnected. That's not just people, that includes, Mother Earth, animals, plants, the atmosphere, everything. Everything is connected.
Hey, it's Stacy. Did you know that I offer speaking and coaching services?
8th trait, and this is one of the huge differing factors between spiritual warrior and spiritual Virago concept. The 8th trait is rebelliousness. And one of the reasons this is so important is because a lot of people, again, like I said during the process stage, they don't tap into that activism. And that's a huge part of the warrior concept, that we're making the world a better place. It's not just about this spirituality where, I'm in touch with my higher power and whatever. It's much bigger than that. We think bigger when we're talking about warriorship, okay? So rebelliousness is not accepting the status quo. It's asking the difficult questions. Again, this is the reason why I have AOC listed as an example of a spiritual warrior. You don't have to be, the Pope or whatever to be a spiritual warrior. Next trait, number 9, is purpose. And purpose is really important because, well, you know what? Let me just tell you this. If you're watching this right now, if you're listening to this right now, if you're resonating with what I'm saying right now, let me tell you that this is for you. If you feel like I could be a spiritual warrior, I could be a spiritual Virago, then you are. That's it. Here's your official badge. Welcome to the club. You're in, okay? Don't worry about the imposter syndrome stuff, the faking it till you make it. If this is what you're doing, then this is what you're doing. There's not going to be a, official guy coming knocking on your door and saying welcome. Okay? So accept that purpose. If you're here, if right now you are feeling like I could do this, I want to do this, then do it. This is it. Accept the purpose, okay? You are worthy. 10th trait, it's kind of two things wrapped together: authenticity and transparency. This is another reason why the Virago concept, again, I've modernized what it means, because we live in this world today of social media where so much of our lives are shared and public, and that's why being real has never been more important, because little girls are starting to worry about dieting and things that were just not on the radar whatsoever even just 100 years ago. So knowing who your authentic self is and being that person, and at all times reacting and being in authenticity and transparency, is a huge part of the Virago concept of this. 11th trait is financial empowerment. And again, this is another kind of more modern aspect of the spiritual warrior concept. The reason why financial empowerment is so important is because, and again, even 100 years ago, this was not as important as it is right now, but our world is run by corporations. We vote with our dollars. Okay? If global warming bothers you, then you stop buying these products. Right? Yes, you vote for certain candidates and whatever that are in line with that, but if you just vote on the ballot and you don't vote at the store with your dollars, you're not having that same impact. So financial empowerment is a full understanding of the role of money in the world and our ability to affect change with money, but it's also in financial empowerment happens on a personal level with financial literacy, financial feminism, and an understanding that literally we buy our own freedom. I have the freedom, to, for example, escape an abusive relationship if I have my own money and I have enough of it. So money is a huge, huge part of living in the modern world. So damn straight financial empowerment is a part of being a spiritual Virago. And the 12th and final step, like I touched on a little bit earlier, is body mindfulness. So this is the nutrition, the health, the fitness, mental health as well. But just an overall understanding that the body is a temple. So before I wrap it up, I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so you're embracing the spiritual Virago concept, you're embracing the spiritual warrior ways. There's an importance in understanding that when we embrace a new identity, that there can often be this spiritual ego that's associated with that, where, you might feel like, well, I'm a spiritual warrior, and you get a little ego boost from that. So if right now, watching this show, listening to this episode, you're feeling like you want to identify with this, just be cognizant, be aware that there isn't a corresponding ego bump that comes along with that, okay? So the content that I produce on the Female Flex and via spiritualvirago.com is all related to the 6 steps and the 12 traits. You're not going to find like stuff to do with your kids this summer or, messy bun tutorial or whatever. Everything that I produce on this site is related to those traits and those steps, that process. I do offer spiritual warrior coaching, and this is really the way that I perceive of it. This is your journey. So the coaching is kind of like an AA sponsor, guides the alcoholic through the 12 steps, for example. It's an accountability buddy. It's someone who has extensive knowledge and understanding and experience with that particular program, and someone that you can, contact for support going through these different steps. A lot of these things are like kind of getting through minefields, right? And you could use a buddy. So that's kind of the basis of the spiritual warrior coaching, is just helping you navigate the steps and the process, the steps and the traits. Also want to mention that the Shambhala centers that Chogyam Trungpa opened in the United States have spiritual warrior courses that you can take. If you don't live by a Shambhala center, there's also Shambhala online, and they have those courses available online as well, so they're available to anyone. The heart of the Shambhala training, if you want to go that route through the original program here, the heart of the program is training your mind. And what that means is meditation. And a lot of times we have this association with meditation as being, it's to help you relax, or it's supposed to be relaxing. And that's one type of meditation that can be a type of meditation, but the true spiritual warrior meditation, it's not about relaxing, it's not about being comfortable, it's actually, you're sitting upright, you keep your eyes open, so there are a lot of distractions. It's about literally doing push-ups with your mind. It's working out your mind. That's what meditation is. So the type of, if you look into the Shambhala program, the type of training is heavily based around learning their style of meditation, which I do every day. I've taken the training, highly, highly recommend it. And it's been very transformative for me. So That's pretty much it. I think covering everything with spiritual Virago and spiritual warrior. You guys are now expert level, ninja, PhD understanding of what a spiritual Virago is. Like I said, all of the resources mentioned in the show are available in the description below. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Female Flex, and I am Stacey Nichols, founder of spiritualvirago.com. Have a great day.
This has been the Female Flex. Please be sure to like and subscribe.